On my birthday, my daughter-in-law threw my gift in the trash, and I thought she simply hated me. But the next morning, the police called, saying she was missing and that I was the last person she tried to protect. Birthdays feel different when you get older. They stop being about balloons or cake and start becoming quiet reminders of who still cares enough to show up. I woke up that morning telling myself I didn't need anything special, that a simple visit from my son and his wife would be enough. Just seeing them, sharing a meal, maybe even laughing a little. That's all I wanted. I had spent the night before rehearsing kindness. I don't know when Alana and I drifted so far apart, but somehow every conversation with her had become a negotiation. Me trying not to upset her, her trying not to show whatever it was she felt about me. Coldness? Resentment? Fear? I couldn't tell anymore. Still, I held on to hope the way a mother clutches a fading photograph, knowing it won't change anything, but unable to let it go. I even bought her a little gift. It wasn't a birthday for her, but I wanted to offer something meaningful, something that said, we can start again. I chose a delicate silver bracelet with tiny engraved leaves. Alana loved plants. She even kept a small greenhouse behind their house. I thought maybe she would see the gesture as peace. So I wrapped it carefully, choosing a soft blue paper I knew she liked, and set it next to the cake I'd picked up for the three of us. All morning I waited, straightened the cushions, relit the candle that always smelled like vanilla, checked my reflection, even though I wasn't trying to impress anyone. It just mattered to me that I looked warm, welcoming. When their car finally pulled into the driveway, my heart lifted in a way that embarrassed me. It shouldn't have mattered this much, but it did. David walked in first, giving me the kind of quick hug you give someone when you're in a rush but feel obligated to be polite. He smelled faintly of aftershave and coffee. Normal, familiar. Alana walked in behind him, her arms crossed tight, her expression unreadable. She didn't hug me. She didn't smile. She just nodded and murmured, "Happy birthday," as if the words weighed too much. The air thickened immediately. We sat at the dining table, and I tried to push the conversation forward like a stalled car. "How's work, Alana?" "Fine." "And the greenhouse?" "Fine." David cut in every so often to answer for her, his voice overly gentle, overly protective, like he was guarding her from me. It stung more than I let show. After we finished the cake, I told them I had a small surprise. I handed Alana the gift with a smile I prayed didn't tremble. "It's not much, but I thought of you when I saw it." She blinked, as if confused by my kindness. Then she slowly unwrapped the paper, lifted the bracelet from the box, and stared at it. For a second, her face softened, or maybe I imagined it. I wanted so badly to see something good. But just as quickly, her expression shuddered again. Without a word, Alana stood up, walked to the corner of the room, and dropped the bracelet and the box and the wrapping straight into the trash can. Just like that. Like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. Something inside me cracked in a quiet, private way, like glass fracturing under too much pressure. I froze, the smile still stuck on my face like a mask. I prayed David would say something, anything. Tell her that was rude, ask why she did it, defend me just once. But he didn't. He didn't even look surprised. He just cleared his throat and said, "Mom, maybe we should go." The shame hit me so hard it felt physical. My cheeks burned, my throat tightened, my hands shook under the table. I nodded quickly, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I understood some unspoken rule I was never taught. Alana brushed past me on her way out the door, her eyes avoiding mine entirely. David followed her, giving me another quick, meaningless hug. Then they were gone. The house fell silent in an instant, so silent I could hear the faint tick of the kitchen clock mocking me with every second that passed. I sat alone at the table, staring at the trash can, at the blue paper, at the bracelet glinting weakly through a layer of crumpled napkins. I told myself not to cry, not on my birthday, not over something as small as a bracelet.
But the tears came anyway. Quiet, tired tears that slipped down my cheeks as I whispered to no one, I was just trying to love her. And I didn't know it yet, not even a little. But the humiliation I felt that day was nothing compared to what was coming next. Because by the next morning, Alana wouldn't just be cold or distant. She would be missing. And I would be the last person she tried to reach.
I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bracelet in the trash, bright silver against the dull gray of discarded paper plates. It shouldn't have hurt as much as it did. I kept telling myself that, but pain doesn't shrink just because you tell it to. It sits in your chest like a stone. As I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories crept in the way shadows stretch across a room when the sun goes down, slowly, then all at once. I thought of my own mother-in-law, years ago, how she used to criticize the way I cooked, the way I spoke, even the way I held my baby, my David. Nothing I did was right. I learned to swallow my voice until silence became a habit, not a choice. I promised myself I would never be like that. I promised myself my future daughter-in-law would always feel safe with me, welcome with me. And yet here I was, the same ache returning like an old injury that never fully healed. I wondered if Alana knew any of that. Probably not. All she saw was a middle-aged woman trying too hard, loving too much, hoping too loudly. Still, even through my embarrassment, something felt off about her. The way her eyes darted around the room, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way she seemed to flinch whenever David spoke too sharply. I noticed it, but I pushed the thought away. I didn't want to imagine things. I didn't want to be unfair. Instead, I convinced myself she simply didn't like me, that she didn't want a connection, that maybe I needed to stop trying. But later that night, long after they'd left, I caught a glimpse of something that should have made me rethink everything. I had finally drifted off to sleep when a soft sound nudged me awake. A faint creak, my bedroom door frame settling under pressure. I blinked against the darkness and listened. Another small sound, almost like someone breathing just outside my door. My heart tightened. "David?" I whispered, "is that you?" No answer. I pushed myself up slowly. My room was still, shadowed, quiet, but I could sense someone on the other side of the door, hesitating. I couldn't explain how I knew. I just felt it. There was a presence, a tension, a pause charged with something unsaid. Then, just as quickly, the presence moved away. Soft footsteps retreated down the hallway, not hurried, not panicked, more like uncertain or afraid. I got out of bed, walked to the door, and opened it just enough to see the faint glow from the living room window. No one was there, but I knew exactly who it must have been. Alana. It didn't make sense. She and David had left hours earlier. Why would she come back? Why would she stand at my bedroom door in the middle of the night? And why not knock? I leaned against the frame, confused, unsettled, my mind turning over possibilities like stones in a river. Maybe she wanted to apologize. Maybe she felt guilty about the bracelet. Maybe she came to ask something private, away from David. Or maybe she hadn't come for me at all. The idea that she might have been frightened flickered through my mind, a quick spark, then gone. I pushed it away. It felt too dramatic, too unlikely. The simpler explanation was that she was playing with my emotions, adding another layer to whatever silent war she thought we were in. And I was done being the target. As I returned to my bed, anger flushed warm beneath my skin. Not the loud, explosive kind, but the quiet, exhausted kind that builds from too many small hurts. Her coldness, her stares, her dismissal of every attempt I made. And now this, whatever this nighttime visit was supposed to mean. I whispered into the darkness, almost as if trying to convince myself. I'm not letting her treat me this way anymore. I'd spent years shrinking myself for other people, for my own mother-in-law, for neighbors, for coworkers, even for David sometimes. I had learned to make myself small, polite, agreeable, thinking it would earn me kindness. But it hadn't. And I realized lying there in that trembling silence that I deserved better than feeling like a stranger in my own family.
The next morning, I decided I would stop bending, stop chasing approval, stop offering olive branches to someone who kept setting them on fire. If Alana didn't want a relationship, fine. If she didn't respect me, fine. I would protect my heart. I didn't know it then, but that decision, the one I made out of hurt, would become the biggest mistake of my life, because the very next morning my phone would ring, the police would be on the other end, and everything I thought I knew about Alana, about David, about myself, would begin to crack open.
The phone rang at 6:14 a.m. Not the gentle trill of a friend calling too early or the chime of a reminder. No, this was sharp, insistent, the kind of ring that slices through sleep and sends a cold rush through your body before you even know why. I fumbled for my glasses and grabbed the phone, heart pounding. "Hello?" A man's voice answered. Steady, formal. "Ma'am, this is Detective Roland Carter with the County Police Department. Is this Mrs. Elaine Turner?" My breath caught. "Yes, this is she. Is something wrong?" A pause. Too long. Then, "We're calling regarding your daughter-in-law, Alana Turner. She's been reported missing." The words didn't make sense. Not at first. They hung in the air, disconnected, impossible. "Missing?" I repeated, like maybe I'd heard wrong. "No, there must be a mistake. She was here yesterday. She went home with my son." "Your son is the one who filed the report," the detective said quietly. My stomach dropped. David? Reporting Alana missing? The girl who barely spoke to me? The girl who looked me in the eyes and threw my gift in the trash? Missing? I stood up too fast, nearly knocking the lamp off the nightstand. Is she in danger? We're not ruling anything out yet. Everything inside me clenched. The detective continued. "We have reason to believe she attempted to contact you last night." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "Contact me? When? I didn't get any call." "There was a call attempt from her phone to yours around 12:23 a.m. It didn't go through." My throat tightened. 12:23 a.m.? That was around the time I sensed someone at my door. I sank onto the edge of the bed. "Detective, are you sure? I didn't hear my phone ring." "It didn't ring. It was an aborted call. Initiated, but disconnected." He hesitated. "We also tracked her phone's last location ping. The signal hit a tower near your neighborhood at approximately 12:30 a.m. My room tilted. "Near my house?" "Yes, ma'am. Very close." My skin prickled. No, this couldn't be happening. Why would Alana be near my home after midnight? Why would she try calling me? Why didn't she knock? Why didn't she say anything? The detective's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Mrs. Turner, have you had any communication with Alana since yesterday afternoon?" "No, none," I whispered. "And did she appear distressed or afraid during your last interaction?" I opened my mouth, but the answer stuck. Alana had seemed tense, distracted, on edge, but I'd convinced myself it was hostility, resentment, dislike. Now the memory replayed differently. Her darting eyes, her stiff posture, the way she kept looking toward the door, the way she dropped the bracelet with a strange finality, like she was hiding something, not expressing cruelty. I swallowed hard. She was quiet, I said helplessly. Withdrawn. Not quite herself. Withdrawn how? I don't know. Just not right. He asked a few more questions about her mood, about David's mood, about the visit. My voice shook with every answer, guilt blooming inside me like a bruise. When the call finally ended, I sat there motionless, clutching the phone in both hands as if it were the only thing anchoring me to the world. The sun had barely risen, but the house felt darker than ever. Alana was missing, and I, of all people, was the last one she reached out to. A cold wave of dread washed over me. Detectives don't use words carelessly. If they called me, if they tracked a phone ping near my home, if I was the last number in attempted calls,
That meant something they weren't saying yet, something they were circling around. They were wondering if I knew something, if she told me something, if she came here and never left. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breath. I hadn't done anything wrong. Of course I hadn't. But innocence didn't calm the fear twisting in my gut. All I could think was, she came here last night. She was at my door. She needed something, help, safety, a moment of courage, and I hadn't opened the door. A small, broken whisper escaped me. Oh, God, what if she needed me? For the first time since this strange, painful tension began between us, I felt something sharp and undeniable pierce through the confusion. Guilt. Cold, suffocating guilt. And beneath it, something darker. Because deep down, I knew the truth I hadn't wanted to admit. Something had been wrong with Alana long before she went missing, and now the police knew it too.
The detectives arrived less than an hour after the phone call. I was still in my robe, clutching a mug of coffee I hadn't taken a single sip from, when I heard the knock. A firm, authoritative knock. Not frantic, not polite. Police knock. Detective Carter stood on my porch, tall and composed, with another detective beside him, a woman with sharp eyes that didn't miss much. They introduced themselves, flashed their badges, and stepped inside as though the air itself felt urgent. "Mrs. Turner, thank you for letting us come by so quickly," Carter said. "We need to clarify the timeline from last night." My stomach nodded. I'll help however I can." We moved to the living room. The morning light leaked weakly through the curtains, making everything feel colder. The detective sat across from me, notebooks open, pens ready. "First," Carter began, "did anyone come to your home after your son and daughter-in-law left yesterday evening?" My pulse thudded. I thought of the shadow outside my door, the soft footsteps, that breath I could almost feel through the wood. I hesitated, not because I wanted to lie, but because even saying the truth sounded unbelievable. I'm not sure," I said finally. "I didn't see anyone, but I thought I heard someone in the hallway around midnight." The female detective leaned forward. "You believed someone was inside the house?" "No," I said quickly. "Not inside, just outside my bedroom door. I didn't hear the front door open, so I assumed I was imagining things." Carter exchanged a look with his partner. "Did you check the house afterward?" "I opened the door, looked around. No one was there." "Did you see a vehicle outside?" "No." Another pause. This time, longer. Then, "Mrs. Turner, your son told us he spent the entire night at home." I blinked. "He did?" "Yes." Carter flipped a page in his notebook. "He said neither he nor Alana returned to your home after the birthday visit." My blood ran cold. So why had someone been outside my door? Before I could form an answer, the detective's attention shifted because David walked in through the front door without knocking. He looked wrong, pale, sweaty, eyes darting around the room like he was checking for something out of place. "Mom," he said sharply, seeing the detectives, "why are you talking to them without me here?" He didn't greet me. He didn't ask if I was okay. His first instinct was to question my interaction with law enforcement. Detective Carter stood. "Mr. Turner, we needed to speak with your mother separately to avoid any influence between statements." David swallowed hard, too hard. "I already told you everything last night. Why do you need more?" His defensiveness was immediate, intense, and out of place. I stared at him, suddenly noticing things I should have noticed earlier. His hands wouldn't stay still. He kept wiping his palms on his jeans. His left leg bounced relentlessly. "David," I said quietly, "they're just trying to find Alana." His eyes snapped at me, wide, almost wild. "I know that, Mom, but you don't understand how things look."
What things? Why did he say it like that? Carter calmly reasserted control. Mr. Turner, please sit. We're clarifying the timeline. David remained standing, sweating, tense. Your mother mentioned she heard someone outside her bedroom door around 12:30 a.m., the detective said. David froze. Just froze. And in that split second of stillness, something inside me cracked open. He knew something, or feared something, or both. That's impossible, he blurted out. We were home all night. I told you that. But the words were too loud, too quick, too desperate. The female detective stepped in. Mr. Turner, your wife attempted to call your mother at 12:23 a.m. Her phone pinged off a tower less than half a mile from this residence. We have reason to believe she came here. David's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Carter watched him closely. Do you know why she would come here without you? His voice cracked. No, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't just leave the house without telling me. Something flickered across his face then. Fear. Real fear. And suddenly, I wasn't sure whether it was fear for Alana or fear of what they might uncover. I felt my heart sink. My own son looked like a stranger in my living room. The questioning continued. Mrs. Turner, the female detective said to me, we need to ask about recent tensions. Any conflicts, disagreements, unusual interactions? I swallowed. I didn't want to bring it up. Not with David twisting in his seat, breathing through clenched teeth, but I had to. There was an incident yesterday, I said quietly. Alana threw a gift I gave her into the trash. I didn't understand why. Did she seem angry? No, more like resigned. The detectives exchanged another look. Then Carter closed his notebook with a soft but heavy sound. Mrs. Turner, we believe Alana may have been gathering evidence before she disappeared. My breath caught in my throat. Evidence? What kind of evidence? We don't know yet, but she'd been accessing several confidential files, making copies, and contacting an attorney. She also reached out to a women's safety organization 2 days ago. I stared at him, my pulse roaring in my ears. Are you saying she was in danger? We believe she knew something she wasn't supposed to know, he said gently. I felt the room tilt. Alana wasn't being disrespectful. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She wasn't cold or uninterested. She was scared. And the bracelet? The gift she dropped into the trash? Maybe it wasn't rejection. Maybe it was panic, a message I didn't understand, a warning she didn't have time to explain. I drifted my eyes to David, my son, who sat rigid and pale, avoiding everyone's gaze. For the first time in my life, I wondered what he was hiding, and whether my daughter-in-law had disappeared because of it. The moment Detective Ramirez returned to my living room, my stomach sank. He held a small tablet in his hand, his expression grim but controlled. Mrs. Fowler, he said, his tone careful, we reviewed the surveillance cameras near your home. There's something you need to see. I felt my chest tighten, a mixture of anticipation and fear clawing at me. What is it? I asked, though part of me already knew I might not want the answer. He tapped the screen and the footage began. At first, it was just shadows moving along the edge of the property, trees swaying, the gate rattling in the wind. But then a figure appeared, small, deliberate. Alana. She moved cautiously, almost reverentially, toward the porch. My breath caught. Detective Ramirez paused the video. Notice her body language. She's looking over her shoulder, very deliberately. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting. Alana's eyes darted around, scanning the empty street, the trees, the windows, and then my stomach plummeted. She crouched near the flower pots on the porch and carefully hid something beneath them. My hands trembled as I whispered, She's hiding something?" "Yes," Ramirez said. "And notice how she keeps checking around, making sure no one is watching her. She's clearly afraid of being seen." Just then, my son David appeared in my mind. His defensiveness, the nervous twitch of his jaw, the way he insisted she was unstable or crazy. My throat dried as I realized the footage said otherwise. I remembered the way she had hovered at my bedroom door the night she disappeared, the hesitation, the fear. And now, seeing her crouched at the porch, my heart twisted. Ramirez continued, "We wanted to verify her last known movements before she disappeared. This is why we think she might have tried to reach you directly." I swallowed hard, struggling to breathe through the sudden surge of fear and guilt. She was trying to warn me?" I whispered. David's words echoed in my head. "She's unstable, Mom. Don't trust her." But the footage contradicted him. Every movement Alana made screamed caution, intelligence, and fear for herself and for me. Ramirez unpaused the video, and this time I saw something that made my heart nearly stop. Alana's lips moved. I leaned forward, straining, the room quiet except for the hum of the tablet. "Not safe." I blinked, staring at the frozen frame. My hand shook violently. Did you hear that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Ramirez nodded slowly. "It appears she was trying to communicate, warning someone. Maybe you." I felt my chest tighten. The bracelet incident, the birthday gift, every cold look, every moment I had misjudged her. Everything suddenly shifted. She hadn't been disrespectful. She had been warning me, protecting me. But then a seed of doubt began to grow, sharp, unrelenting. David, my son. He had insisted she was unstable, crazy. He had minimized her fears, dismissed her warnings, and yet every piece of evidence suggested the opposite. I looked at the screen again, watching Alana glance over her shoulder as if sensing someone approaching. I could almost feel her fear radiating through the pixels, a silent, desperate plea for caution. Could David really have been the one she feared? My mind raced through the past months, the tense dinners, the cold silences, the subtle manipulations, the way he avoided discussing money, the strange defensiveness when Alana brought up concerns. Every instinct I had ignored, every doubt I had pushed aside because of maternal love, suddenly felt justified. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My son, the boy I raised, the child I loved more than life itself, might be hiding something darker than I had ever imagined. I pressed my palms against my eyes for a moment, trying to block out the swirl of emotions, fear, disbelief, guilt, and that nagging sense of betrayal. Ramirez cleared his throat. "Mrs. Fowler will need to follow up on this. The footage suggests that Alana may have been in imminent danger, and your home or someone near it could have been involved." My throat tightened. I need to know she's okay. Please, I need to know she's safe." Detective Ramirez gave me a solemn nod. "We're doing everything we can. That's why the surveillance was so important. It gives us context for her actions and intentions. She was trying to protect herself, and maybe even you." I sank into the chair, my mind spinning. I felt a sudden heavy wave of responsibility. My instinct had been wrong. My trust had been misplaced. I had doubted her, someone brave enough to risk everything, and I had trusted David without question. I closed my eyes for a moment, replaying the moment Alana crouched on the porch in my mind. I could feel the fear, the urgency, the desperation, and I could hear the words again. Not safe. My maternal instinct warred violently with the reality unraveling before me. I loved David. I always would. But I also had to accept that love didn't mean blind trust. Not anymore. I looked up at Ramirez. We need to find her. Now. He nodded. We're on it. The footage ended, but the impact didn't fade. My hands shook, my chest ached, and my heart felt stretched between fear, guilt, and the unbearable need to act. And beneath it all, a quiet, terrifying thought began to settle. Perhaps the person I had always trusted the most, the son I loved more than life itself, might be hiding something darker than I had ever imagined. Alana had been warning me, and I had almost missed it. I knew then that nothing would ever be the same.
After the detectives finally drove away, their questions still ricocheted through my skull like loose bullets. The house felt different, heavier, as if the walls themselves knew more than they were willing to share. David had gone upstairs without a word, muttering something about needing space. I didn't follow him. I didn't trust myself to look at him without everything inside me spilling out. Instead, I wandered to the front door, my hand hovering over the lock, almost trembling. Maybe it was habit, or maybe it was instinct, but I stepped outside and scanned the porch again. Something, a flicker of memory, nudged me. Alana, standing right here, her face pale, her hands tight around something. The way she had looked back at the door, as if terrified someone would open it, and then she had slipped something behind the flower pots. That image came back so sharply I gasped. I bent down, pushing my hands into the cold space behind the pots. At first, all I felt was dirt, a dead leaf, the rough terracotta edge, but then plastic, a small sealed package. My heart dropped straight through me. "Oh, Alana," I whispered into the quiet street. I carried the package inside, closing the door with a soft click. I set it gently on the kitchen table, almost afraid to disturb whatever truth it held. The plastic was wrapped tight, like whoever packed it wanted to be absolutely sure no one tampered with it. My fingers shook as I tore it open. A small black USB drive slipped out first, then a handful of crumpled receipts, printed screenshots of bank accounts, and finally, the note. A torn piece of notebook paper, her handwriting frantic and uneven. "Protect yourself from David." I sat down, or maybe I collapsed. I honestly couldn't tell. The world tilted, the table seemed to shift beneath me, and my breath came out in sharp bursts. Protect yourself from David. No, she must have meant something else. She must have written this under stress or fear or misunderstanding. My son, my sweet boy, the child I raised alone, the boy who used to sleep curled against my chest, couldn't be the danger. Could he? My eyes dropped to the receipts, all from the past 6 months, withdrawals from my savings account, amounts I never approved, purchases I never made, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. The handwriting in the margins, Alana's notes, said things like, he used her login. IP address matches David's office. She's being set up. My hands went cold. I reached for the printed screenshots. They showed online banking dashboards, all under my name. One account had a balance that made no sense, too high, suspiciously high, as if money had been moved there. Another had withdrawals that lined up with the receipts. My identity. My accounts. He had been using them. "No," I said aloud, shaking my head so hard it made me dizzy. "But he wouldn't do this to me." But deep inside, something broke. Something small and fragile that I had been holding together for years, maybe decades. Because I remembered the way he reacted whenever money came up, the defensiveness, the guilt hidden behind irritation, the sudden business trips, the new car he insisted was a work necessity, the way he had pushed me to give him access to help with bill management when I got the flu last year. I had trusted him, and he had used that trust as a weapon. A tear dropped onto the table, then another. I opened the note again, as if reading it twice might change the meaning.
Protect yourself from David. My vision blurred. The room pulsed. Why didn't she come to me? Why didn't she tell me what she found? Why hide this instead of handing it over? Then I remembered the way she stood in my doorway last night. The hesitation, the fear in her eyes. She had tried. She had almost told me, but she must have heard something. Maybe David's footsteps, maybe his voice, and walked away. My chest tightened. Another memory surfaced. Alana at the trash can, throwing away the necklace. Not with hatred, not with triumph, with panic. Not an insult, a warning. I pressed my fists against my mouth to stop myself from crying out. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't disrespectful. She was terrified. And I had judged her, misread her, seen her fear as malice, seen her distress as attitude, seen her as a threat when she was the one trying to save me. I closed my eyes and a wave of guilt slammed into me. What if she was missing because she tried to protect me? What if someone close, found out she knew? My hands tightened around the receipts until they crumpled. Upstairs, I heard the floorboards creak. David, my son, my blood. But suddenly, he felt like a stranger. And the package in front of me felt like the only thing I could trust. I gathered everything carefully, slipping it all back into the plastic. My mind raced. Should I call the police? Should I confront David? Should I leave the house entirely? Each thought was a thread pulling me tighter. Before I could decide, I heard footsteps at the top of the stairs. Slow. Heavy. Pausing. Listening. I slid the package into my sweater, just as his shadow stretched across the hallway. My heart hammered so loudly I thought he might hear it. The house, once warm with memories, felt suddenly dangerous. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son.
I don't know how long I sat at the kitchen table after hearing David's footsteps. Maybe seconds, maybe hours. Time had a strange way of stretching thin around fear. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow deeper. When David finally came downstairs, he didn't look at me right away. He hovered near the bottom step, rubbing the back of his neck, his eyes darting around the room like he was searching for something. An exit, a lie, a reason. I folded my hands on the table. Calm. Or pretending to be. David, I said quietly, we need to talk. He froze. His shoulders rose slightly. Fear? Guilt? Irritation? I didn't know anymore. I didn't trust myself to interpret anything correctly. What about? He asked. But his voice had that careful tightness I recognized from when he was a child and had done something wrong. Sit down, I said. He hesitated just long enough to confirm everything I already suspected, then pulled out the chair across from me. The moment he sat, the house seemed to hold its breath. I looked at him, not the child I raised, not the boy I adored, but the man he had become. A man whose wife had disappeared, a man whose financial chaos had been hidden beneath charm and distance, a man who was now watching me as if I held a match over a fuse. I need you to tell me the truth, I began. All of it. His jaw flexed. About what? You know what. Silence pooled between us, thick and suffocating. For a moment, I thought he might keep lying, keep stonewalling, keep deflecting, like he had with the detectives. But something in his face cracked, a tremble in the corner of his mouth, a subtle flinch, a breaking. Then suddenly, he dropped his face into his hands. Mom? His voice broke. I messed up. The confession hit me like a blow. He dragged his hands down his face and looked up, eyes wet and frantic.
I didn't mean for any of this to happen, I swear. I've just been drowning. You don't understand how bad things got. My pulse raced. Explain. He swallowed hard. The debt, the people I got involved with, the investments that went bad, the pressure. I shook his head, choking on his own words. I was desperate. David, I whispered, did you use my name? My accounts? He looked away. That was answer enough. But then he nodded, small, ashamed, broken. I was going to pay it back, every penny. I just needed time. I never meant to hurt you. Hurt me. Such a tiny word for such a gaping wound. And Alana? I pushed. She found out. He stiffened. A flash of anger or panic crossed his face. She snooped. She went through my laptop, my emails, everything. Because she was scared. Because she thought you were doing something illegal. He slammed his fist lightly against the table. Not in violence, but in frustration. She exaggerated everything, twisted it. She wanted to ruin me, Mom. You don't know her like I do. She left a note saying I needed to protect myself from you. David's face drained of color. No, he whispered. No, she wrote that because she was angry, because she wanted to leave. She's been threatening divorce for months. That wasn't what the detectives had implied. That wasn't what her eyes had said the night before. And that wasn't what she'd hidden behind the flower pots. He was lying again, or maybe telling half-truths, or twisting reality into the shape he needed. David, I said softly, where is Alana? His head snapped up. How would I know? She left. She does this, disappears, runs off to punish me. She'll come back. She always does. But his voice betrayed him. It cracked, wavered. He didn't believe a word of what he was saying. I felt the USB drive in my sweater pocket, its presence like a stone pulling my heart downward. David, I whispered, I found something. From Alana. His eyes narrowed. What? I took out the USB and placed it on the table between us. His expression changed instantly. Fear stiffened his shoulders, anger flickered in his jaw, and something darker passed through his eyes. Mom, you don't want to get involved in this, he said slowly. I already am. She left this for me. He reached for the USB, but I put my hand over it first, meeting his eyes. Not until I hear the truth. He exhaled sharply. She manipulated you. She's been trying to turn you against me. That's what she does. She splits people apart. You're my mother, not hers. Then you shouldn't be afraid of what's on here. He tensed. I plugged the USB into the small speaker recorder Alana had left in the package. I didn't even have to search for files. One audio file played automatically, as if she had prepared it in a rush. The first few seconds were quiet. A shuffle, a breath, a door closing. Then David's voice filled the kitchen. Cold. Threatening. Nothing like the man sitting in front of me. Alana, if you open your mouth, I swear. David, please, listen. No, you think you're smarter than me? You think you can run to her? If you ruin this for me, I'll make sure. The recording cut off abruptly, like she'd stopped it mid-argument or was interrupted. The kitchen fell silent. David's face went slack, completely slack, as if every lie he'd planned to tell had been ripped from him. That's not what it sounds like, he whispered. But even he didn't believe that. My chest tightened so painfully I had to hold the edge of the table to stay upright. This was my son. My baby. The child I held through nightmares, the teenager I supported through heartbreaks, the adult I helped through every stumble. And he had said those words. That tone, that threat. David, I whispered, what did you do? He pushed back from the table so fast the chair screeched. His breathing turned ragged, panicked. Mom, you don't understand. This wasn't supposed to go this far. She manipulated me. She made me say things I didn't mean. This wasn't just anger. You threatened her. He slammed his palms on the table because she was going to ruin us. The sound echoed through the house. Us. That word, us, stung like fire. There was no us in what he did. Only him. His choices. His lies. I felt something inside me break, not in a violent way, more like a quiet snapping, the end of a long fraying rope. "David," I said, voice trembling, "Alana is missing, and you were the last person who threatened her." His expression shifted, fear, then calculation, then a chilling blankness. "I need you to stay on my side," he said slowly. I stared at him, my son, the stranger, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know if standing by him was even possible.
I don't know what changed first in that moment, my pulse, my breathing, or the fragile thread connecting me to the boy I raised, but something shifted, something decisive, something final. David stood before me, pacing now, muttering under his breath, running both hands through his hair like he was trying to dig himself out of his own skull. "I just need time," he repeated. "Time to fix this. Time to make things right. Mom, please, just don't call anyone." That plea, "don't call anyone," was its own confession. And despite the love I had for him, despite the years of memories woven into my bones, I knew what I had to do. I waited until he stormed upstairs, slamming his door hard enough to shake the frame. Only when his footsteps faded did I move, quietly, carefully, like prey. I took the package, the USA, the receipts, everything, and slipped out the back door. My hands trembled so violently I had to hold the railing while descending the steps. The cold air hit me like a shock, but it cleared my mind. I needed help, real help, and I couldn't get it here. The police station was colder than the air outside, sterile, humming with fluorescent lights, the kind of place where truth felt too heavy and lies too obvious. When Detective Ramirez saw me walk in clutching the package, he straightened immediately. "Mrs. Fowler?" His eyes narrowed. "What happened?" I didn't sit until he offered the chair. My legs weren't trusted enough to hold me. "I found this," I said simply, setting the package on his desk. "Alana left it for me." The detective opened it carefully, like it might explode, a valid assumption considering what it contained. When he pulled out the note, his eyebrows shot up. "Protect yourself from David," he read aloud. Jesus. I swallowed thickly. "There's more." I explained everything. The receipts, the banking screens, the threats, the way Alana had stood at my door the night she vanished, the fear in her eyes, the argument caught on the recording. Detective Ramirez and Clark listened in unnerving silence. When the recording played, David's voice sharp and cold, their expressions hardened. "How long have you had this?" Clark asked. "I found it after your team left today. Alana hid it on my porch." "And your son?" Ramirez leaned forward. "Where is he now?" "He's at home. He doesn't know I left." They exchanged a look, one that was sharp, urgent, decisive. "Mrs. Fowler," Ramirez said gently, "you just gave us probable cause. We're going after his associates now. If he's in debt to dangerous people, this may explain why Alana went into hiding." "Hiding?" I repeated, heart lurching. "You think she's alive?" "We don't know yet," Clark answered, already pulling on his jacket. "But the fact she left evidence suggests she didn't plan to disappear voluntarily." "What can I do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Stay here," Ramirez said firmly. "You're safe here, and we need you accessible." I nodded, though a part of me was still trembling. Fear for Alana, fear for David, fear for what truth would finally land hardest. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time warped again in that space. A young officer brought me tea, but it went cold, untouched. I stared at the wall, replaying Alana's every expression from the last few months. The way she flinched when David raised his voice. The way she hovered near me sometimes, as if trying to speak, but stopping herself. The way she lingered at my bedroom door last night. She wasn't rude. She wasn't dismissive. She wasn't trying to push me away. She was trying to warn me, trying to reach me, trying to trust me. And I failed her. The shame hit like a wave. Tears pooled, but I forced them back. Crying wouldn't help her now. My thoughts spiraled until Detective Ramirez burst through the door, breathless, adrenaline pouring off him. "Mrs. Fowler," he said, barely catching his breath, "we found her." The world froze. "What?" My voice cracked. "Where? Where is she?"
In a drainage culvert off Highway 3. She was hiding, injured, dehydrated, but alive. She'd been running from someone, possibly one of David's contacts. She'd been staying low because she didn't know who she could trust. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might collapse. Can she talk? I stammered. He lifted a hand gently. She's being treated at the hospital. She's conscious but weak. She kept asking if we got the evidence. I gave it to you, I whispered, a sob breaking through. And then, as if the universe wasn't done with me, Detective Clark entered behind him. We also have another development, Clark said grimly. Some of David's associates were tracked to a warehouse. They bolted when they saw us. We've detained 2. One of them admitted David owed them a large sum. They were pressuring him and making threats to his household. I closed my eyes, nausea rolling through me. David had dragged Alana into danger. He had dragged all of us into danger. And yet, he was still my son. How is David? I forced myself to ask. Their eyes softened, but only a little. He wasn't there. Ramirez said, "We have a unit watching your home. He hasn't tried to leave." Meaning they expected he might. I wrapped my arms around myself. "Mrs. Fowler," Ramirez continued gently, "Alana asked to see you when she's stable. She said she wants you to know something." My heart pounded painfully. "What?" She said, "She kept trying to help you, to protect you. She said she's sorry she didn't do it sooner." A sob tore from my throat so sudden I couldn't stop it. "Oh God," I whispered, hands trembling uncontrollably. "She tried. She really tried." Ramirez sat beside me, his voice low and steady. "This wasn't your fault." But I didn't believe them. Not yet. Because the woman my son hurt, used, frightened, the woman I misjudged and neglected, the woman who risked everything to save me, was the same woman lying in a hospital bed, barely clinging to strength. I pressed my palms to my face as the tears finally fell. Not quietly, not politely, but in harsh, shaking sobs. Relief she was alive, grief for what she had suffered, guilt for every moment I misunderstood her. And somewhere underneath it all, a quiet, haunting question. If Alana survived, what would happen to David now?
The hospital smelled faintly of anesthetic and flowers, a scent meant to soothe, but only making my nerves tingle. I sat in the waiting room, hands clasped tightly in my lap, staring at the bland linoleum floor. Every second felt like an hour, every breath like a test of my patience. Finally, a nurse appeared, her face kind but firm. "Mrs. Fowler, Alana is stable and would like to see you." My stomach flipped. I stood shakily, brushing imaginary dust from my clothes. Words failed me. So many things I wanted to say. "I'm sorry. Thank you. I misjudged you. I love you." I had no idea where to start. They led me down a corridor, and when I saw her, lying pale and bandaged in a hospital bed, I froze. Alana looked smaller somehow, fragile, but her eyes, bright, sharp, met mine immediately. "Elaine," she whispered, her voice hoarse but unmistakable. I stepped closer, my throat tight. "Alana, you're okay. You're alive." She gave a weak smile, shaking her head slightly. "Barely, thanks to you." I blinked, stunned. "Me? Yes, you." She interrupted gently. "You did exactly what I was hoping you would." I swallowed hard. "Alana, I misjudged you. All of it. The gift, everything. I thought you were disrespectful, angry, cold." My hands shook as I tried to find the words. "I thought you didn't like me." She laughed softly, a sound that was almost sad. "You mean the bracelet?" She nodded toward the hospital gown draped over her thin shoulders. "I saw your gift, and I didn't throw it in anger." My chest tightened. "You didn't?" Her eyes were steady, unwavering. "No, not at all." I felt my throat close. "Then why?" She took a shallow breath,
then whispered, "Because it wasn't safe." I froze. "Safe? What do you mean?" "The gift," she said carefully, "had something in it. Something you couldn't see." I frowned, confusion twisting into a tight knot. "Something what?" She leaned forward slightly, wincing as a nurse glanced over. "A tracker." I blinked. "A tracker?" "Yes," she continued, her voice quiet but firm. "David planted it in the gift bag, not to track me. He wanted to track you." My world tilted. My stomach fell through my chest. "To track me? But why?" Alana reached out, her hand brushing mine lightly. "He didn't want you to know what he was doing with your accounts. He wanted to make sure you wouldn't notice anything until it was too late." I shivered. "So, you?" She nodded. "I saw it when I unwrapped the gift. I panicked. I realized he was trying to involve you, to put you at risk, and I couldn't let that happen. I discarded it immediately, out of your sight, so you'd be safe. That bracelet, your thoughtfulness, it wasn't wasted. It was saved from becoming a trap." I pressed my hands to my mouth, tears welling and spilling freely. The image of that discarded bracelet, once a symbol of humiliation, now glimmered in my mind like a shield she had wielded to protect me. "Oh, Alana," I whispered, I thought you hated me." "No," she said, shaking her head weakly. "I thought you loved me, and I needed to be sure you'd be safe." I leaned closer, unable to stop myself, trembling. "I misjudged everything. I misread your fear as malice. My voice broke. I never should have doubted you." She squeezed my hand faintly. "I know," she said. "We've both been through so much. I should have trusted you sooner, and you should have believed me." The tears rolled freely now, a mixture of relief, guilt, and gratitude. I couldn't stop them. I thought I failed you," I whispered. "You didn't," she corrected gently. "You saved me. You saved me twice, once by following through with the detectives, and once by giving me your trust, even if it was delayed." Her words struck me deeply. I realized how fragile trust could be, how easily fear and misunderstanding could twist reality, and how much courage it took for her to hide the truth, for her to protect me even when she was terrified herself. "I can't believe," I choked. "I thought that day, that birthday, it was the worst. I thought it was when everything fell apart between us, but it was the day you protected me, and I didn't even see it." Alana smiled weakly, exhaustion in her eyes. "That's how fear works. Sometimes it hides under anger, under coldness, under silence. But you noticed too late, but you noticed. That's what counts." I pressed my forehead against hers, feeling the warmth of life and resilience. "I'm so sorry, Alana, for doubting you, for misunderstanding you, for being slow to see the truth." "You're my family now," she said softly. "You always have been. And I know you'll make things right, for both of us." I nodded, tears sliding freely, "And I will. I promise. I'll protect you just like you protected me." And in the hospital room, with the smell of anesthetic and the quiet beeping of machines around us, I finally understood the depth of her bravery. Not the bravery of confronting debt, danger, or a missing person, but the bravery of protecting someone who had misjudged you even when you were terrified, even when the world seemed against you. Alana had thrown away the gift, but she had also thrown away my fear, thrown away my doubt, and given me a chance to finally be her mother-in-law, her ally, her protector, without even asking. I held her hand tightly, silently vowing that from that moment forward, nothing, not David, not fear, not betrayal, would come between us again. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. David's arrest was surreal. I watched from the living room window as the police led him out in handcuffs, his face pale and blank. The same boy I had raised, yet now a stranger. My heart throbbed painfully in my chest, half maternal love, half disbelief, half grief for everything that had been lost. I wanted to scream at him, to demand every answer, every apology, to curse him for the fear and chaos he had dragged into our lives. But I also wanted to cradle him, to whisper that he was still my son. I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Not after everything. The house felt impossibly empty that night. The silence pressed down on me, and I realized how much David had dominated every corner of our lives, not in love, but in control, in secrets, in shadows. And yet, as much as I was furious, part of me ached for him. Alana stayed at the hospital for a few more days, but once she was cleared to move, she came to my home. She stayed in the guest room, recovering her strength, and we began what felt like a cautious dance. Two women who had once misjudged each other, now sharing the fragile space of trust. The first week was quiet. We tiptoed around each other, careful not to overwhelm. I made her tea exactly how she liked it, weak with a touch of honey, and she laughed softly when I overboiled the water the first time. We talked about small things at first. Favorite books, memories of childhood, my late husband. Little by little, the tension softened. "You know," she said one morning as we sat at the kitchen table, sunlight spilling across her bandaged arms, "I was terrified, but I trusted you, even when you didn't trust me." I looked down at my hands, trembling slightly. I misread everything, Alana. Your fear, your silence, even your anger. I judged you before I understood you. She reached across and held my hand, weak but insistent. "We all make mistakes, Elaine. The important part is what we do after. And you acted. You didn't ignore me, even if it took a little push." I swallowed hard, guilt and gratitude warring in my chest. I can't believe I thought that bracelet, that gift, was rejection. She smiled faintly. "It wasn't. I didn't throw it away in anger. I threw it away to protect you, to make sure you were safe." Her words echoed in my mind, sharper and warmer than ever. The fear, the courage, the love, all wrapped in that single act. The days passed slowly, each one teaching me patience, empathy, and the fragile resilience of human trust. Alana regained her strength. I began sorting through David's mess of financial and personal chaos with the detectives. Each revelation was another wound, but also a lesson in vigilance and forgiveness. I found myself reflecting often, late at night, sitting in the living room with the soft hum of the ceiling fan, thinking about how easily love can be misread. Fear hides itself so well behind anger, behind silence, behind a simple action like throwing away a gift. I thought of Alana standing by my bedroom door, trying to reach me, trying to warn me, trying to save me. And I had seen threat where there was protection, malice where there was courage. I wanted to tell every mother, every daughter-in-law, every family member, see beyond the surface, listen beyond words, watch for fear as well as love. Then, one afternoon, while helping Alana organize the guest room, I noticed a small envelope tucked behind a stack of hospital paperwork. It was familiar, the handwriting unmistakable. I picked it up carefully, holding it as though it might shatter if I breathed too hard. Inside was a folded piece of paper, the same note I had read months ago, only rewritten in her careful handwriting. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to keep you alive." My heart tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Tears welled instantly, hot and unstoppable. The bracelet, the discarded gift, the warning. Every painful moment had been misread, But now, finally, the truth sat in my hands, gentle and clear. I called Alana over. She smiled faintly, her eyes still tired but bright. I kept it, so you'd know why, so you'd understand, even if it took a while. I held her hand, trembling. I understand now, and I'm so sorry for doubting you, for everything. She shook her head. You didn't. You just didn't see. That's all. We sat together in silence for a long time. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of fear or resentment, but the quiet, restorative silence of understanding. The house, once filled with tension, secrets, and danger, felt lighter now. Alana's presence brought a fragile warmth back into every corner. I could almost hear the walls sigh with relief. I knew rebuilding wouldn't be easy. David's arrest, his betrayal, the financial mess, it would take months, maybe years to fully recover. But in this moment, I felt the first real taste of hope. Love had been misread, fear had been disguised, and danger had lurked close. But truth, courage, and empathy had won in the end. And finally, I realized protection isn't always loud. Courage isn't always visible. Love doesn't always look like we expect. Sometimes it hides behind a discarded gift, a whispered warning, or a note folded neatly in an envelope. I held Alana's hand a little tighter and whispered, "We'll get through this. Together." She smiled faintly, but certain. Together. And in that quiet, sunlit room, I understood that some bonds, though tested, misjudged, and nearly broken, could be rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, and filled with a kind of love that sees beyond fear, beyond misunderstanding, and even beyond betrayal. I looked at the rewritten note again, tucked safely in my hands, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to believe that we were going to be okay. Because Alana had saved me once, and now, together, we would save each other every day forward. And as the late afternoon sun streamed through the window, falling softly across the table and the note, I whispered to no one but myself, "Love is stronger than fear. Always." The bracelet, the gift, the fear, the truth, all of it came together in that quiet, powerful understanding. And finally, the house felt like home again. The first session of therapy was harder than I expected. Sitting in the soft brown leather chair across from someone I didn't know, yet who somehow already knew more about my fears than anyone else ever had, it was humbling. I tried to explain everything: the loneliness, the misread signals, the fear, the chaos of David's secrets, the heartbreaking guilt after Alana's disappearance. Words tumbled out like loose marbles, some rolling smoothly, others clattering to the floor. My therapist, a calm, patient woman with kind eyes, listened without judgment. She didn't interrupt, didn't flinch, didn't offer quick fixes. She just let me speak, letting each confession settle into the quiet room. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to feel lighter. I realized I had been carrying more than fear or heartbreak. I had been carrying layers of misunderstanding, regret, and guilt for every misjudged glance, every misread word, every moment I doubted Alana. Therapy didn't erase that weight, but it taught me how to hold it without letting it crush me. I began to see patterns, not just in David's actions, but in my own reactions. How quickly I assumed anger meant hatred, how easily I interpreted fear as malice, how often I let past pain cloud present truth. I realized healing starts with acknowledging these missteps, forgiving myself, and choosing to move forward. At home, life felt lighter too. Alana had moved back into her apartment near mine, but she came over often, filling the spaces in the house with laughter, quiet conversations, and the comforting presence of someone who had risked everything to protect me. We established small routines. Sunday mornings became coffee and books time. We cooked together on Wednesday evenings, experimenting with recipes neither of us had dared to try before. We even started a small herb garden on the balcony, the green shoots a quiet symbol of new growth and resilience. David's absence was a shadow over everything. There were moments, sometimes when I passed his empty room or saw a folder of papers he left behind, when the ache returned. But Alana's presence reminded me that love and family could take new forms. Family wasn't always just blood. Sometimes it was built through trust, courage, and shared survival. Alana and I often talked about that day, the day she threw away my birthday gift. We laughed softly about my initial misunderstanding, but there was always a pause afterward, a quiet reverence for what that act had meant. "You know," I said one evening, stirring tea, "I spent months thinking you hated me." She shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "And I spent months trying to protect you while you thought I was being cruel." I laughed quietly, shaking my head. Sometimes the person you think hates you is the one risking everything to save you. Her eyes glistened. Exactly. I realized then that this truth applied far beyond our story. It applied to everyone, to the people whose actions are misunderstood, to the quiet sacrifices, to the courage hidden behind what seems like indifference or malice.
Therapy, daily life with Alana, and the gentle rhythms of healing taught me how to trust again, how to listen carefully, how to read fear as well as anger, how to recognize love even when it's wrapped in panic, silence, or desperation. I also learned to forgive myself for the judgment, the misinterpretation, the moments I failed to see what was right in front of me. Alana and I became an unexpected family. Not perfect, not conventional, but real, resilient, and full of quiet warmth. We supported each other through the lingering anxiety, through small setbacks, through the occasional pang of old memories. And slowly, that warmth filled every corner of my life. We began planning little adventures together. A day trip to the mountains, a picnic in the park, a weekend of exploring small towns nearby. Each trip became a marker of recovery, of laughter reclaiming the spaces fear once occupied. One afternoon, while we were planting new herbs, Alana looked at me with that same calm, steady gaze that had first convinced me to trust her. "Elaine," she said softly, brushing dirt from her hands, "you've come a long way. You're finally seeing things as they are." I smiled, feeling the truth of it in my chest. "I am," I said. "And you helped me see it, not just with what you did, but with who you are. You risked yourself for me, Alana. I'll never forget that." Her smile was small, gentle, but unwavering. "And I never forgot you either. You're worth protecting, always." I leaned back, letting the sun warm my face. I thought about all that had happened, the fear, the lies, the danger, the misread signals, the shattered trust. And I realized that while the past couldn't be changed, the future was still ours to shape. I felt a quiet gratitude settle over me. Gratitude for Alana, for survival, for the strength I didn't know I had. Gratitude for the lessons learned through pain and misunderstanding. Gratitude for the knowledge that sometimes love speaks in ways too subtle for fear and doubt to recognize. And as I looked at Alana beside me, tending to the tiny green shoots that would grow into something strong and beautiful, I whispered softly, more to myself than to her, "Sometimes the person you think hates you is the one risking everything to save you." Her hand brushed mine,
light and warm. And for the first time in months, I believed it. We weren't perfect. We weren't the family I had imagined for years, but we were real, resilient, healing. And in that quiet, sunlit garden, surrounded by life pushing gently through the soil, I realized that perhaps this was the beginning I had been waiting for all along.
A new chapter, fragile but strong, filled with trust, with understanding, with unexpected love. And this time, I would not misread it.